Hello, people of the page, as the late great Anne Rice used to say on her iconic Facebook page. Welcome back. How are we today? Twin Temple has released another banger, which is definitely going on my Halloween party playlist. Not my Samhain ritual playlist, but definitely my Halloween party playlist. Today I am back with even more discussion on the gods, on building relationships with them, on what and why and wherefore that can be, and specifically it is related to a very thoughtful question that I got on Twitter not too long ago, probably long for internet standards. It was like a week or two ago, and I really wanted to respond over video because I thought that it would be a good continuation of this general conversation of building relationships with the gods. So here's your semi-weekly soundtrack for your commute if you've got a long drive, hanging out on the treadmill if you hate cardio, if you're getting ready to fist fight your upstairs neighbor Greg, if you're getting ready to curse your mother-in-law or just hex her. Either way, I got you. Let's get cracking. So the question that prompted this was from a great gentleman in Ireland who has been quite supportive of my work for a long time. So I appreciate you, Damien. You are awesome. You are always very thoughtful. And the question was, if I use any kind of prayer liturgy, if I utilize any kind of liturgy for my prayer practice. It was specifically built on a post that I had made. It was one of my rare acknowledgments of ADHD. I don't like to focus too much on my shit because it's not what I want to be known for. I'd rather just, talk about what interests me, and not focus too much on my personal shit. But it really is, and I think I said this in the tweet, you are bare knuckle boxing your own brain. That's a lot of the time what ADHD is like, and getting anything done feels like a fist fight. You're kind of wrestling parts of your brain into submission sometimes. And I was just saying at the time that what helps keep me in check, what helps me get absolutely anything done, so I don't just lose mass amounts of time to the nothing, to the ether, as it were, is basically a combination of prayer, working out, kind of the same thing for me, but I'll talk about that. I've spoken on it before. Discipline, routine, and just those activities that really anchor me. And that's where that question from Damien came in on if I follow any kind of liturgy. So when it comes to prayer itself, I do not. I'll talk a little bit more about that. I really only use more of what I would call a liturgy or a liturgical outline for formal rituals, especially more public-facing rituals. I like to make sure that they follow a certain outline, or rather, they naturally orient around a certain outline. I believe I have another video out, if I recall my own work, on basically the core order of ritual from the ADF Druidic perspective. I'll get into more of a Primal Druidric video at some point, I'm sure, on how I do ritual from that. But anyways, as far as prayer goes, it feels useful for me to discuss the reasons of why I pray, more than just hear specifically how I do it on a more surface level, because I am a reverse engineer type person myself, and I've said this before as well, but it bears repeating. I want to step away from this endless permission giving that people on the internet are kind of always doing, which the intention doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter if people are well-intentioned. I think we're building too much, almost was codependence, but we don't even, a lot of us on the internet, most of us don't freaking know each other. So I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it's valid to pray in this way or it's not valid. Who fucking cares, right? Who cares what I think? That's the point. You shouldn't really care what I think to the degree that it determines what you do or don't do. If you feel called to pray or do magic in a certain way, you do what the fuck you feel called to do, within reason. Let's not, don't misinterpret that in the least charitable way possible. I think I'm being pretty direct. So anyways, I'm really also just the type to reverse engineer stuff. If you tell me what a spell is doing or what you're doing or why, or if you just tell me the function of something, I can pretty much just figure out how to do it or a way that I would do it, from my practice, from my perspective. I do sometimes enjoy learning more about other people's methods, It's something that I can definitely sometimes learn a lot from, and I enjoy it. But I like to reverse engineer things for myself. So why I pray tends to be typically falls under 3 reasons. One, really just to honor that God, to just honor that deity, to give them praise, to show them worship, to show them love and reverence, to just pay tribute to them and praise them. Plain and simple. Reason number 2 is kind of interrelated. You could argue that this is sort of the same thing, but I think it's distinct enough to be its own thing. 2 would be to just build and deepen more of a relationship with that deity, to water the plant of that relationship, as it were, whether this is a patron, whether this is a newer relationship between myself and a deity, to just sort of strengthen that and build that commitment. 3 would be to get inspiration or to pray towards some specific point of focus. I'm trying to maybe learn some kind of, to gain inspiration in a certain way from a deity. I'm trying to sort of, not imbue myself, but I'm trying to ask them to imbue me with their essence in a certain sense. If I'm trying to open up their essence as a sort of current in my life, like let's say I'm calling on Bridget for more hearthy, homey, but also strong and sovereign love and tenderness and sort of like sacred matriarch, embracing like that sort of like mother queen role, which she embodies so beautifully. So you hear what I'm saying. Basically those 3 reasons. 1, strictly praise. 2, deepening the relationship. 3, trying to get some kind of bounty or inspiration, or to, get something on my end, which is allowed. That's part of the deal of hospitality, as it were, in Druidry, is a gift for a gift. We give our faith. I tend to think faith really is an offering in and of itself, and that's why we curate it, right? That's why we deepen it with skills and offerings and all kinds of other things, and I'll get more into that, but it is an exchange. But I do believe also, like, you should dedicate, this is what I believe, you do what the hell you want. I believe there's power in dedicating certain time to just offerings, or just I want to get inspiration, or whatever it is. You can obviously blend it sometimes, but I think that sort of just like letting certain things run pure, like a stream that's kind of just focusing on one current, can be very powerful. So the only real point of like formal consistency that you could say might be even related to the sort of theme of liturgy in terms of how I pray, it would be, I've sort of been making a project, a faith project, out of improving my bardic skills and incorporating that into my prayer. When I say bardic skills, I mean memorizing poetry, memorizing actual pre-written prayers. This was something that the OG Druids did in their bardic training, the sort of Bard, Ovate, and Consummate Druid, the sort of culmination of all of them in that bardic training. The OG Druids used to memorize by heart and learn by heart and know just truly by heart just epic amounts of poetry, epic amounts of myth and storytelling and satire, and probably stand-up comedy, if we're being honest. Some of them were probably fucking comedians. That's what the spirit of it tells me, at least. And some of the stories really lean towards that, where they would like roast royalty into fucking oblivion. Great stuff. Anyways, I have taken it upon myself to sort of both deepen my prayer skill ability and honor that legacy by trying to memorize some poems for myself, to deepen my ability to storytell for myself. And so I've started with just a few poems. I don't know a whole ton by heart, but I've done my best to memorize a few that I'm very proud of, and to go from there. I'm still working on some new ones. Where was I with this? Blah, blah, blah. The poems that I've memorized, I do engage with them as prayers, to be honest. It's Invictus, and it is If by Rudyard Kipling. Invictus, I actually have tattooed across my toes. It means unconquerable. I love that entire poem, and I think that I don't know what I can't speak 100% as to what the author intended, but to me it very much captures this pagan essence of not just like self-determination and sort of ferocity, but questioning and inner strength. And you can read it for yourself, and you tell me what you think in the comments if you feel so inclined. But it's Invictus, it's If, which I just fucking adore. And it's actually Sigdrifa's prayer is one of them. I'm really not heavily or almost at all, to be honest with you, Nordic pagan leaning anymore. I had a period of time where I very, very heavily engaged with that sort of realm. Zero regrets. There's plenty of wisdom in it. I do have a bind rune tattoo on my right foot, which I love, because I love the meaning of it. It was created for me by a friend, and you know, it's there to serve a function. But anyways, I am once again getting off into the weeds. I do really like, despite, I don't care, like I pull from what works, I pull from different things. And as much as I don't heavily draw from that Nordic pagan perspective anymore, I very often like to start my day by reciting Sigdrifa's prayer. Let me put myself on the spot. What is it? Hail to the day and the day's sons, hail to the night and her daughters. With loving eyes look upon us here and bring us to victory. Hail to the sky gods, hail to the sky goddesses, hail to the mighty fecund earth. Eloquence and native wit bestow on us here, and healing hands while we live. That's a translation of it. There's others. As y'all know, if you've been following me, I'm not about like word for word. I'm about the spirit of it. I like that prayer because I think it hits a lot of the important points. If you really look at it, it's covering the elements. It's covering that sort of life and chaos and different sort of essences that I like to honor in my own practice regardless. So it's always a powerful way for me to start my day. And I do want to focus on this too. I really believe that a crucial component to prayer, to powerful prayer and offering, which are not the exact same things, and I'll do another video probably on just offerings at some point, but I think a powerful component is the nonverbal elements, the nonverbal components. It's the active memorization, it's the struggle to do so, it's the strain, it's the mental commitment and discipline, and it's often the physical movement and your own physical struggle and strain, not just to remember stuff, but to push your body and to move around. I've spoken about before of my working out my strength training as a devotional offering to my patron goddess, who is a goddess of sovereignty and warfare. So it's very much, you know, apropos to that. Where was I with this? Blah, 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 blah. So that is part of my devotional offering to her. But when I'm doing it, I'm really not thinking. So the prayer element in terms of explicit mental inner verbalization of any kind, thinking to myself, this is for you, whatever it is, or visualizing her, the Morrigan. I do all of that before and after, because generally speaking, I'm thinking of fucking nothing when I'm lifting, which is one of the greatest gifts of it, is being completely present, completely in the moment, fully embodied. I actually experience, for whatever my experience is worth, a lot of the visuals that I get of her, from her, I get mid-lift. I very often see her cloaked in blood, which just always strikes me as a beautiful image. It's not like some edgy whatever. I see my goddess just cloaked in her element, and sometimes I'll get specific phrases, but very often it seems more just like an energy exchange. I am doing it in her name, in her honor, in praise of her, and to make myself more like her, to open up myself, to call that essence of sovereignty and strength in herself as the mistress of magic, not so much just battle. There's a whole video, I'm sure that there's so much that can be discussed on the Morrigan herself. But anyways, that is a little bit about what I do with that. Sometimes I will do kind of just energy maintenance while I am lifting, while I'm doing the bulk of what I would call my physical prayer. the last time that I got in the gym after being kind of inconsistent for a few weeks because I've been moving into Coquitlam West here. I just was not as religious about it as I typically am. And when I got back in the gym for the first time in a while, I just, while I was squatting, I just pushed a bunch of what felt like flushing, watery, like sewage water energy out through my legs, through my limbs, out through my feet. So I'll do stuff like that mid-lift. But the explicit prayers before and after, as I said. So anyways, that sort of gets into also, I've mentioned Damien Eccles before, who I have an endless amount of respect for. And in his book, Angels and Archangels, A Magician's Guide, he sort of touches on there being what he considers two general reasons to do magic. One of them, broadly speaking, and if I'm misremembering this, go read it for yourself. I could be. But how I remember it is there's a sort of difference between trying to make something specific happen. I'm not going to call it manifestation, but magic towards a specific aim, right? To meet a certain need, and then spiritual sustenance. And I'm going to talk about this, about whether prayer and magic are the same thing. Spoiler alert, prayer is not spellcrafting. They are not the same fucking thing, but I can see to a degree why people feel they are interrelated, because the ways that we pray as practitioners, as witches, for me as a druid, very often is a magical act. It's just not the same thing as spellcrafting, but I'll get into why in a bit. So part of why I bring that up is making a longer, more embodied process of prayer. That can be that spiritual sustenance element where you're not trying to get anything really in that moment. You're not trying to get anything out of it apart from breathing, apart from, it's the water we drink, it's the air we breathe. I really feel that a lot of us who do this, it's not really a choice. It's just it's how we are. It is our calling. I believe it's a privilege to be able to practice in a lot of ways, but it's also just how we do. So anyways, people also in that sort of like Nordic, pagan, heathen sort of sense, people throw around the phrase deeds, not words a lot, which I think is great. I'm not saying it to knock it at all. I continue to throw that phrase around myself. But in that sort of vein of like deeds over words, and religion as not just something to claim that you believe in and then go around and break your own rules and commit your own sins when you think nobody's looking, but religion as actual stories to live by. I feel like this is where I like to think on the idea of extending prayer out, not just into that nonverbal component, but out into offerings of skills and service until that flows out into the rest of your life, into your actions, into how you actually live, and how you move through the world. So you learn a lot by looking at yourself very honestly and seeing what are your actions feeding? Because I think in a lot of ways, prayer is the act of intentionally letting your words and your actions, your energy, your essence feed something specific, something holy, something divine, one of your gods, or maybe more than one at the same time, who knows. But you learn a lot by taking that sort of inventory of yourself and objectively looking at what are your actions feeding, and then making a more conscious process out of that. I really see that as deeply religious. I see that as divine in and of itself. And obviously you can use that as a pretty effective metric to effectively, accurately judge other people. Not by like a fucking whatever they claim they believe, whatever they claim about what their intentions are or what have you. Look at what their actions are actually feeding, and that's how you can determine a lot about them as a person. You look at what they serve by what their actions feed. So, where am I with this? So yeah, with the idea, sometimes people, sometimes like ladies with nice haircuts on the internet, or hippie-tastic people, or just, you know, like all manner of folks on the internet like to talk about sometimes about how prayer is magic, is quantum physics, is spellcrafting, is manifestation, and it's all the same fucking thing, and it's just different ways. No, that's not accurate. I don't like it because it's not true, and what I really dislike about it, beyond it simply being untrue, is that it's sort of contributes to this flattening of everything. I think that people who say this think that they are almost like being respectful by trying to legitimize everything by saying, oh, it's just different ways of talking about the same thing. What you're really doing is, frankly, just showing ignorance as to what magic actually is and to what spellcrafting actually is. Where am I with this? There we go. Oh, there we go. I put, I think the attempt on their part is they're trying to respect everything and legitimize everything by saying that, but it's really flattening and sterilizing it. Something I wrote that I am very happy with my wording on this, and not gonna lie, I'm gonna pat myself on the back. Prayer is really like poetry from us to the divine. Sometimes the poetry is a devotional praise, love letter sort of writing. Sometimes it's a lament. Sometimes it is longing for something. And sometimes it's like a diary, sort of sharing your emotional state with the divine. Prayer has the element of vulnerability and sharing your honest emotional state, but, and this is where the distinction lies, it is not specifically raising and directing energy towards a specific aim in the way that spell crafting is, in the way that doing magic and doing spells actually is. So that's what I mean by when people equivocate those things. They literally do not know what they are talking about, or just they're not coming from a witchcraft perspective. So I'm sure someone could argue that praying on something in particular towards a specific outcome is a form of magic. I think that's kind of a silly semantic word game to play that, again, just indicates a level of ignorance. And at the same time, part of me wants to bring up sort of like Catholic folk practitioners and, you know, like people's, pardon me, people's aunties and stuff that insist that they're not doing witchcraft and would never, but the way that they quote pray is, you know, like lighting prayer candles and like blowing horns and like doing all kinds of stuff, which is, you know, I'm not trying to dig myself a fucking hole with that whole thing, but there's obviously a lot of people calling things different things. They have their own reasons for that, I'm sure. I don't need to be the one to rip their band-aid off. I'm just gonna say I consider shit like that witchcraft. I consider it at very least a definite form of a magical practice. Not here to tell people what the fuck to do, but that's just how I see it. Shit like that is not prayer. You are not just praying at that point, you are doing magic. So anyways, this video's drink, while I take a beat here, is apple juice from Trader Joe's. Last night was tea, now it's apple juice. Anyways, my last video, basically, I was trying to establish an understanding that the gods operate in a different kind of reality and not just objective, qualitative, literal reality. That's not how they operate. It's not their domain, and it's not what makes it valuable. It was important to me to establish that they matter because of how they resonate with us internally and intangibly, rather than trying to enforce some kind of unprovable dogma, which is not the point. So to that point, something that just sort of occurred to me while I was thinking about what I wanted to say for this video is I never really said the following specific sentence in the other video because I've written about it before, and this is kind of like a pet topic for me among my friends, so I've been talking about this for a long time. But basically, I did want to reiterate that religion and science are not the same domains. They do not need to be competitive with each other because they are not the same thing, so they should not be competing for the same kind of attention. They should be complementary, not competitive. So I have written more about this on my Substack, Outlaw Priestess on Substack, whatever, do with that which you will. My last post on there that I've been super intermittent with was specifically on that topic. So anyways, pardon me. Another little anecdotal tidbit that I felt like including, because it may actually be of use to someone who knows, is that whenever I do record my very intermittent, I know, videos, and before I write, I begin that process by, before I start recording, before I start writing anything, making a prayer to the spirit of the ancient bards in that sort of spirit of flow through me. Let whatever I say be towards the function and serving the just the magical essence of the Awen itself, of magic itself, of druidry itself. So let me say things in the most effective way possible, even if I ramble, even if I wander. Let what I say and do serve magic. Let me be part of that sort of current, that flow that the ancients began, that we continue in the day-to-day. Some version of that every time. So if you are watching these videos, the stuff I put out from a distance, and you yourself have a need or desire or what have you for someone to pray for you for a specific thing, I had the idea that I wanted to open up an invitation for prayer requests that I will incorporate into my next ritual. I won't say them out loud unless it is requested. But I've sort of done this before. I'll do this once in a while, where on my Instagram, Outlaw Priestess, I'll put it on my stories that send over something that you would like me to pray for you about, and I go out and make a dedicated day for it. I really like going out to certain rock pools out by me, bringing a wee bit of incense right by the water's edge, nothing's getting fucking burned down, and just releasing them out for you and then kind of moving on. So my plan this time around is to take those prayer requests up until September 22nd, or you know what, I need to cut it off obviously before the actual day. The ritual where I will be incorporating these will be on September 22nd, so I can go ahead and take those requests up until the 20th, I will say. And my plan is to take them and to just write them on slips of paper and send them up into the fire during my next rite, which is a mead-infused maze ritual. And just to make this clear, because I've had some misunderstandings when I've done this before, I'm not opening this up for like 24/7, send me stuff all the time. I just don't have the time. I can't always get to it. So I'm setting a dedicated time that I will for sure be sending these out there. If you would like me to read them out loud at the ritual around the fireplace with other practitioners that can go ahead and, you know, bless it and send out a Biashiali, may it be so. Let me know. Just say, hey, here's what I'm requesting a prayer on. Go ahead and say it out loud. If you don't want me to say it out loud and just to write it down and throw it in the fire, just say, yep, keep this one to yourself. I love this because sort of in the vein of like acts of service as prayer or physical things as prayer, this was something that the ancients used to do, that the OG druids used to do. They would hear what really amounts to confession. They would take people's secrets. They would do prayer on behalf of their community and their people. So I'm more than happy to do that this time around. So go ahead and feel free to send those over. What's the best way? You can contact me through my website, primaldruidry.com, and you can DM me on my Instagram. I'm on there the most often, Outlaw Priestess. So, anywho, let's see where I'm going with this. Yeah, I do not have the time to take it 24/7. Like if you don't make the window for this time around, I'll do it another time in the future. If you really want to reserve more of my time, I do paid readings, and you can arrange that through my website. So speaking of such things, the events that I have coming up, that mead maze is really right around the corner. I need to post about that more, so if you see more posts on that, sorry not sorry. The mead maze is I've been calling it that because this really cool gentleman, Benjamin Pixie, basically offered to collaborate and wanted to do something together some months back. He is a mead maker, a potion master, bard in his own right, storyteller, and he wanted to brew up some mead that I could use during a ritual and basically just team up in some way. And so I started calling it the Mead Maze because I've been really fixating on the symbolism of just the symbol of mazes and labyrinths for like months and months now. So my friends are probably annoyed. And I liked the idea of creating a physical, moving, like walking maze circuit of sorts, and incorporating little mead samplers that you could sort of try in different points throughout the maze. But he did unfortunately inform me that he's not going to be able to travel out to SoCal for it. So odds are he's going to be shipping us out the mead, and I will just, you know, pour one out in his stead. But if you are anywhere in or around the LA area, or you want to travel into town for it, go to primaldruidry.com. You can read more about the ritual there. I will be happy to go ahead and send you more info on that. It is going to be $33. We're including quite a bit in it. You will be fed and watered and all that good stuff after the rite. We use quality oak logs. There's all kinds of good stuff. So look into it if you're at all local. I know we have some people coming up from Vegas, which is a huge compliment that I very, very much appreciate. Apart from that, on the 22nd, I have a Primal Druidry workshop, basically just going into what it is, what it constitutes, how you can do it, just the sort of foundations of it, and then doing a taster ritual right afterwards. This is going to be at the Crooked Path in Burbank on Friday the 13th of October. Incredibly excited about that. It's on a Friday evening. I tend to price everything I do at like $33 because, you know, 3 is the number of druids and it's my favorite number. So do with that what you will. I'm not sure if I have anything else to really drop out here, but for anyone still watching, I want to say that if you have any questions relating to druidry and sort of mutt witchcraft, which is generally what I call what I do because I'm not initiated into anything formally for the time being, please do leave them in the comments. I will incorporate them into future videos. My general plan right now is to make more specific videos on each of the individual and interrelated elements of druidry. The first off, primary focus is being the gods, nature, spirits, and ancestors. Those are the big 3. Then land, sea, and sky. Sort of just getting into all of the moving pieces that make druidry alive and beautiful in 2023. So that is my semi-sleepy, not as sleepy as the other night, apple juice infused discussion of the evening. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to share them in the comments below. If you're stinky about it, I'll ignore you. If you're cool, I will respond. So that being said, thank you for joining me. Now go outside and go do some magic.